There we go. All right. Brilliant. 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 Yep. Got it.
Yes, got it.
Marvelously brilliant.
Got it. Okay. Hello, 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 and welcome. Again, another live, again, another opportunity, another possibility. What a timing. What a timing. And I'm saying for a timing because this is the pause, this is the break I was desperately looking for. Uh, Last 2 3 days were busy in a different way, and I was not planning for those situations which were coming. They were unpredictable, and but they were actually providing the opportunity to stay calm, and I tried my best to do that. Many things were happening, and it made me more appreciative towards people who were actually being so patient with me every single time when I was going through this phase, and learning and growing. Learning and growing is just
Yes.
very personal. We don't usually think about other people who are contributing in our process, who are our companions. We mostly think of our own transformation, our own chaos, our own disturbance, our own sufferings, and a lot of other things. But it's all about self, which is of course not bad.
Mm.
But it's not only about me. People who are playing a role of a companion in the process, they go through a lot with us, and actually it is more difficult for them because they know already all those things, they have been through all those things, and still they choose to go through again. And this is so profound. I'm really more appreciative towards anyone who has been a companion in my process of learning, and still they are. This is so good. Sometimes we need to go through that process to actually
Yeah.
understand the real value of sharing. And I this is something happened.
Exactly.
Also, I was just before coming to this live, I was thinking about something. Still
Oh.
mentioned patience. Still mentioned patience. That, oh yes, it is a good practice. We were discussing about someone and something,
Mm.
and it was like, and he mentioned that, okay, oh, this is a good practice, Veena, for patience. And I was thinking, can we actually learn patience in an artificial environment, artificially comfortable environment?
Mm.
Can we
Mm.
practice patience there? And that is a question today I'm going to ask self, because
Yeah.
for me the first abrupt answer was immediate answer, spontaneous no. To learn patience you need to go through some realness, some real process. But on the second thought I was like, no, patience is about me. My patience level could be
Mm.
completely different
Mm.
to
Mm.
someone else. Someone
Mm.
else might be able to have patience in really, really horribly chaotic situation and unpleasant situation, uncomfortable situation, overwhelming situation. My patience level can be in comparison very little, very small. And I would like, okay, just the slightest disrupt in my life, and I would like, oh my God, my life is all ruined. And I need to practice patience now. That's why I was like, okay, if whatever is artificially comfortable for me might not be for others. And
Yeah. Exactly.
that is the question I'm keen to discuss today after the story, because the story is still pending. We just stop there at the very specific point, like, okay, yes, now we're going to start. Um, but that question is also, it's a burning question in my mind, that how to actually
Mm.
practice patience. This is my question today, sir.
Just by doing, Bina, just by doing like you were. You were just doing it. You were just doing it. It just came, the opportunity came, and you did because you set the intent to do so. Now, did you set an intent specifically to practice patience? No. You set an intent
No.
to be considerate, to be thoughtful, to be caring, to be assistive, yes, helpful, to be kind, to
To be
appreciate,
appropriate.
to be exactly, to be appropriate. You take all of that and you combine it, you get to be appropriate. Patience is simply being appropriate. When you consider the universe as a part of the equation, it's all about that. Yes, just being appropriate, right?
Yes. But my question is more than that.
Mm.
I was asking you what I was assuming that we practice and exercise and learn patience by being in an artificially comfortable environment
How do you mean artificially comfortable?
where people are not directly uh, countering you, where people are not saying things directly. You can feel the energy,
Oh,
but on surface there is everything is calm, words are smooth,
yeah,
and they're smiling. But you know that, okay, some people are not comfortable with you,
yeah,
some
yeah,
people don't
yeah,
want you to be there, or something like that. I'm just giving you just a general idea
yeah,
where things
yeah.
are
Oh,
not
absolutely.
on surface.
I feel absolutely because just because the situation isn't similar to others and it's maybe a partial circumstance, that doesn't mean that the learning isn't real. The situation might be artificial, but the learning is real, right?
Hmm.
See,
Yes.
it never matters what to say. Look, we learn from movies, we learn from books, all artificial, right? I mean, even a non-fiction book is
Yes.
artificial to a certain extent, right?
Yes. Now it makes sense.
Ah,
Yes.
ow, wow, two mosquitoes over here. Dang it. I got the bug zapper going, but it's not working. Yeah. Huh. Hey, you're gonna get eaten, mosquito. You're gonna get eaten.
No, oh, you cannot just kill them like this. They have their they have your blood in their veins.
Well, not yet. They haven't bit me yet. I'm very sensitive to feeling them land and that. So I always get them. Only on my ankles, because my ankles have lost a bit of feeling in them. So there they get me a little bit. But other than that, no, sorry, I'm hypersensitive to it. But suddenly, where did they all come from? That's the thing that's so curious. All right, I'm trying to share, and it won't share to the page, but never mind. We got other things that we can do. Brilliant. I love this. You know, we can learn in any situation. And this is very crucial to be aware of. That learning itself is learning. The learning is real. The situation doesn't have to be. Um, it really doesn't. It really matters nothing. That is,
Now it makes sense
yeah,
because
yeah.
my idea was that when actually when no one is saying anything, then you start doubting that what you are receiving is maybe not directly true. Then how can
Yeah,
you
yeah,
actually your patient? Because when you are not very confident about that, yes, maybe it's just my
yeah,
understanding, maybe it is just I'm feeling, maybe it
yeah,
is
yeah,
not
yeah,
there.
yeah,
When you are not sure, how can you practice patience there?
yeah,
But
yeah,
I
yeah,
understand your point, of course, that we
yeah,
can learn from anything in every situation, but it
yeah,
has to be the
yeah,
clear intent.
yeah,
The
yeah.
intent needs to be
And
very clear and
right,
precise.
right, right, right. And Norma says, hello, Norma. Important to just before we continue and carry on with other stuff.
Yes,
Say
yes, yes, yes.
hello,
No,
good
no,
evening,
no.
Norma. Yes. And Norma says there are so many different ways of learning, which is a good thing. Yes, absolutely. Also,
Yes, yes, yes,
also,
exactly, no.
also, I think the nuance point that I feel that's that's there for you on this point of the artificial environment is that it's not so much a question of whether we learn or not, is whether we learn the fullness or completeness. No, not necessarily. But does that mean that the skills that we learn, even if we learn a partial skill, that helps us to learn the full skill in the, as now, the non-artificial environment, as it were? Yes.
Hmm.
So it's still valuable, right? And I think that's maybe what's bothering you, that, or not bothering you, but nagging at you a bit, that in an
Yes.
artificial environment, we aren't learning the full skill, we're learning a partial skill. Right?
Yes. Yes.
And
Exactly.
is that, and that's the point. So it's not that we don't learn, it's just that we learn a subset, a segment, a portion, a part. That doesn't mean we can't use that when we apply it in the full situation. From there, it's just a matter of more extrapolation. Maybe you've got to learn a few extra parts, doesn't matter. It's never wasted. It's never ever wasted, right? Bina,
Yes.
I love this. I love this point. Yeah, learning is never wasted. And like Norma says, many different ways to learn. And they all feed off each other.
Yes.
Especially when we
Exactly.
make that effort, and this is something that we do from Way of Impeccability and particularly in the Moreness project. We pay exquisite attention to learning the abstract lesson. The
Yes.
abstract lesson is, you could say, it's not artificial, but it's also not the actual situation, right? It's going the other way now. The artificial situation is like really learning the small part, then you got the situation. But the abstract learning goes the other direction again, where you learn the skill or the understanding, the ability, whatever, attitude, etc. You learn it in its abstract, which allows you to apply it in that specific situation and another specific situation, because the abstract is the similarities between different situations, right? You abstract what's similar. And when you can apply that, you can go into any situation. If you combine that abstract understanding, abstract awareness, abstract learning, you learn the core issue, the thing that really matters, like patience, right? You can apply it in any situation. If you learn a little bit of patience, you can apply it in a situation where you need a lot of patience. It's just a matter of adapting. Yes.
Hmm.
Make sense?
Yes.
Very cool. Will you pull up your slides again, please, to continue reading? Norma says, also depends on the love of learning a particular subject, but something not how liked is hard to learn. Yes, and that's where the abstract learning comes in, Norma, and why it is so potent. Because when we are learning subjects that are difficult to learn, well, take patience, right? It's sometimes difficult to learn, but if we are focused on learning itself, on the abstract topic of learning, you say, man, I'm learning, I'm growing. I'm not only learning, but I'm practicing. Capital P practice, which is again an abstraction, right? It's the generalized topic of practice, not a specific practice like practicing my music or whatever. Now I'm practicing all sorts of skills in learning patience, right? And now I don't mind because I am learning. And what I'm learning to do is learning self-control, self-awareness, self-ability, self-confidence, self-trust, right? All of these skills I'm learning. Plus, I'm learning the most important skill of all, which, of course, as Bina alluded to earlier, is the skill of appropriateness. Appropriateness taken to its ultimate gets us attunement. Yes, if we want to be fully appropriate in our doings and abilities and learnings, we've got to be in attunement. No?
Yes.
Right? So now when we look at it in this context, it's like, wow, suddenly everything becomes just magical. And we don't mind the learning, whatever it is, because we see it in the context of attunement. And whatever is in the context of attunement is always appropriate. Yes, it's us that's inappropriate, not the universe. And the more we can attune to the appropriateness of the universe, the easier things are, right?
Hmm.
And the more
Yes.
appropriate we are. It's not about changing the universe to suit us. It's about changing us to suit the universe.
Yes.
This is a hard lesson for people to learn. So when you put it that way, it sounds kind of like meh. The point that is missed is the perfection of the universe. What the universe wants for you is what you really want for you, but don't yet realize. We just think we want a whole bunch of stuff. Nonsense, right? We want fame and status and this and that. Yeah, sometimes that might be appropriate for you, yes. But I'm just using those as an example, right? Or whatever the things are that we want. Most people have come to realize in their lives that the things that they chased after were a bit hollow, and or not necessarily hollow, but not for them. They chased other
Mhm.
people's dreams. Yes, it doesn't mean the dream itself is something wrong with it. It's just not for you. Yes, and that's a very big deal. That's a very, very big deal to become aware of. That we need to chase our own dreams, then they're appropriate. It's not an issue with dreams, it's an issue with appropriateness. Yes, we can't do what others think is right. It's right for you, not right for me. Yes, like, well, this came up today, somebody mentioned about having children. It's right for them, not for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just for argument's sake, this is very important in doing what I'm doing, in terms of the live and the books and the writing and the courses and all the stuff. It's appropriate for me. Whether or not somebody else is here to partake of it makes no difference. Right, Norma, you keep being concerned about you the only one here. Well, other people do watch on the replays, quite a lot actually. Like on YouTube, it's quite significant there. But anyway, it doesn't matter. If nobody watched there, it wouldn't make any difference. None whatsoever. This is living in attunement, Norma. I know it's difficult to grasp, and it goes sort of against the logic that. But why would you do it if you're not doing it for people to watch? It's a good question. It's a very good question. My motivations come from attunement, not from me, Norma, which makes what I do very, very different. Yeah, and why I do it very, very different. Very powerful. Very, very powerful. Yeah. It's a very different way of living. And that's my life. It's always been very different. I think I shared this morning, I was sharing about my parents and, just how they were in my life. And there's an assumption that our parents have an influence. So the question was basically, or at least by implication, how did your parents affect or influence you? They didn't. They didn't. They had no effect on me. None. I didn't much care for their way of doing things and their goals, their ambitions. They were super ambitious. They were yuppies before the word was around. Right? Everything was about ambition to them and status and getting ahead and looking good and what will the other people think and all of this stuff, right? Impressing others, all that. I saw it as hollow before I even went to school. I remember my father sharing. He had. It's hard to believe. It's hard to believe, but I'll tell the story because it's also about things in another time.
Mhm.
Our street number of the house we lived in was 8. Our phone number was also 8. Yes, 8. Not 6 eights or 7 eights. Nope, 8. Just 8. Number 8. That's it. We were number 8, which he had arranged, right? Because he had juice. He was the doctor. There was nobody else more important in the town, right? He was the only doctor in the whole district, like 100 miles around. It was a really big deal. Right? So he had juice to get this number. Not only that, but he also got the car number plates. One was 88 and the other one was, I think, 888. Then his surgery was 88 on the main road, right? I think it was Victoria Road it was called. Anyway, So we had these four things, right? The phone number, the house number, well, and the two cars, and then his surgery, 'cause he's a doctor, right? And he said this to us as kids, and this is one of my earliest memories. This was before we even went to school, and he was so proud of it. He was so proud of this, right? He's sharing it with us kids. How cool is this? Now, I didn't use the word cool because cool wasn't cool. The word cool didn't come around just yet, right? Well, it may have, but it wasn't in our language, right? Because this is in the mid 60s now. And anyway, he was so cool. And I thought, yes, it is cool. But for it to be this cool for you is foolish and silly. I saw the difference, right? In other words, I was clearly aware that, yes, it is cool on its own, but it's overly cool for you. It's too big a deal, right? If you did it as a fun thing, all right, but it was so important to him. It was massive. And I thought that's inappropriate. And the way he shared it with us too, I felt was inappropriate, right? It's like we're the kids here, it's like, this is like, I don't know, he was basically, the way he was sharing it in my mind at that time, he's like basically making himself a kid like us. This is like a foolish, silly kid thing. You're an adult, you're supposed to know better. My thinking at the time. And ever after that, I understood that he was all about this stuff. Then, yes, he's a very intelligent fellow. He's got multiple different things that he's started. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah. But that did not make him foolish. I understood that difference then on that day. That you can be all intelligent like crazy, but no, you can still be a fool. And I had no respect for my father ever, neither for my mother. So how can you be influenced by people that you don't respect? I mean, you can't learn the occasional thing from them. You can learn from everything. But, well, I mean, the only thing that I really can say I ever learned from my father was never bet an uncertainty on a certainty, or never bet a certainty against an uncertainty. Well, where that came from him, or I could have picked it up. I picked up many such things from various sources here, there, and everywhere. Yeah. Oh, no, no. I love your comments. Patience is a good card game. Yeah, it is. It is. It's a fun card game. Yes. Yes. I used to like playing double patience. But that's double patience is like patience, but it's actually for two people. Yeah. A very cool game. You play with two packs as well. Yeah. But it's necessary to a society that difference is needed. Absolutely. Difference is not only needed, but we need to celebrate difference because it's just magical. Make all the comments you like. Difference between learning and knowing. Yes, to know that difference is very important. Anyway, so my point is that my parents were of no influence whatsoever. And I made every effort to avoid actually interacting with them. I have no memories, for instance, of them reading me stories, uh, or, I tried to avoid being hugged as well. I used to kiss us goodbye to school. It's just inappropriateness, right? All the kids hated this kiss because he'd kiss us on the mouth and it was a wet kiss. Like, seriously? The soonest I could put an end to that, I did.
Wow.
Again, from his point of view, no affection to it. It's a supposed to. Yeah. It's the weirdest, oddest thing.
I'm
I
laughing because
specifically remember my older brother and sister complaining about it. Actually, the younger one too. None of us liked it at all. It was horrible.
I was
I would, I
laughing
would tuck my
because
lips, Bina.
oops.
You know what I mean? When you
Okay.
give a kiss, like, I mean, you
Yes.
you part your lips when you kiss, but no, I would purse my lips so that they would dry. You know what I mean? On the kiss on this, it's like, come on, man, really? How oblivious are you? How do you kiss like that in any case? Again, it's like, mm, it doesn't matter all the things that you do. Little thing like that is more significant than everything else.
Yes, yes.
If he was, kind and loving and caring, then of course you can forgive people nonsense like that. Or you don't even have to forgive. It just, well, it's an idiosyncrasy. But when you're a jackass, then things like that, or even just more jackassery.
Mm.
Yeah. He was seldom around anyway. He'd leave for work before, usually before we went to school, which made the kisses quite unusual because they weren't all the time, and then they stood out even more. And then he'd come home fairly late, especially when I was younger. By the time he came home, we were in bed already. Yeah. So
Wow.
they seldom saw him. And it was a different age too. It was an age where kids and parents, they were different species. They didn't interact. You didn't hang out with your parents. You didn't chat to your parents. That was not just in my family. That was just the society. It's unthinkable. Parents were there to tell you what to do and give you punishment, and give you rules, make you do your chores, stuff like that. That was it.
Wow.
Mm. I mean, I never saw any of the other children have interactions with their parents. Maybe they did, but I never saw it. Yeah. But that was the culture, though. Kids were seen and not heard. You didn't hang out with parents or with adults. Yeah. Yeah, it's quite amazing. It's very different, which suited me just
But
fine. Yeah. Yeah. Oh no,
it
this
is
is.
different
Hang on,
because
hang on, hang on, hang on. Sorry, Bina. Hold your point. Why is it sad, Norma? Why is it by default sad? It might be, but why is that the only option? What other options could there be? It was awesome. It was freaking brilliant. I didn't have my parents sitting on my back all the time and, trying to influence me and steer me and all this. They tried a little bit. They had their ambitions and stuff that they wanted to foist onto me. But because there was so little interaction, it really didn't make any difference. I was free to bring myself up. I did a hell of a lot better job than they possibly could do. They didn't have the ability to do it. They just had no clue. Their idea of what you should do was ambition and status. And, you've got to always come top in the class and you've got to shine and get awards and God knows what all crap, right? That was their world. Dreadful, horrible world. I don't want nothing, no part of it. Thank you very much. Nothing about honor and integrity and impeccability and nothing like that. No, learning patience, forget about it. This is not even an issue, right? Learning emotional control, energy management, not even a thought, not even a clue. Yeah. So the real things that I needed to learn, they were unable to share. So it's not sad, Norma. It's brilliant. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Oh, sad for him, yes, not sad for me. Oh yeah. This comes
yes.
in the 1 cent story. Right? Hold your point, please, 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 Bina. But I do want to emphasize this point.
No, no, no,
Comes
no, no. I
with
haven't.
the 1 cent story. Sad for him, absolutely. Right? Came the day when I was to get pocket money. My elder brother and elder sister, they 4 and 5 years older than me. They getting pocket money. Now I'm grown up enough. I'm old enough. Whatever. I don't know. I assume this was probably I turned 6 and I'm gonna go to school that year. I don't know if I was already in school or not. I somehow feel it was just before I went to school. Anyway, I'm now to get pocket money. All right, come the big day, right? And yeah, I get my pocket money. Right, this kind of exciting event, right? Your first day that you're going to also get pocket money, and I get given my pocket money. Yes, this momentous occasion of getting my pocket money. Hold on one moment. Are you looking at screen, Norma? Bina, you looking at screen?
Yes. Yes.
All right, Norma, this is what I got. See, that's what I got. That's what I got. Right there. That's what I got. 1 cent. 1 cent. I very respectfully and dutifully said, thank you very much. You know, you're free to give whatever you choose. And I was so disgusted, right? I didn't show that to my father because the cluelessness of his and that moment of giving it to me, I said, how clueless are you, dude? All right. I didn't use those words back then, but that's what I felt, right? Seriously, like, dude, where are you from? What world are you in? How do you live? Now, I was acutely aware that 1 cent to him is absolutely nothing. I didn't expect to get a lot, but at least I thought, if you're going to give me pocket money, give me something I can actually do something with. This was per week, by the way. 1 cent a day, maybe, all right, but per week. It was a star toffee. That's what you could buy with it. There were little smaller toffees that you could get 2 for a penny, but those a star toffee was a decent sized toffee, right? 1. That's it. That's what you could buy with it. 1 star toffee. Seriously, you get 1 sweet a week. This is your treat that you're getting. I mean, sorry, I don't want to be rude here, but you know, in my mind, I gave my father the finger. You know what I did? I went outside and I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to throw away this cent. Now, this might sound like a very simple, casual thing to do, but in that environment, yes, being disrespectful, being wasteful, waste was the most serious crime. You could still steal something or even murder somebody, and well, there was a good reason. Like, you know what I mean? They were a horrible person, they were abusing me, whatever. Right? They still, you could still imagine some legitimate reason for other crimes. But waste, no. There's no reason for waste. None. No justification. Waste was absolutely out of the question. Yeah, I am wasting this gift that's given to me. It's not only wasteful, but also massively disrespectful. So I contemplated my behavior, right, to throw away that penny as a gesture. And I said, no, I'm going to throw it away. If I get into trouble for it, I get into trouble for it. Too bad. Yeah, I'm willing to take the consequences because I was rebelling against the foolishness. I said, I want no part of this foolishness, this idiocy. And I did. I flung it away out into the dirt as far as I could. Then, you know, had I been asked what I spent it on, I would have said, no, I didn't spend it. Well, what did you do with it? Yeah, well, what did you do with it? Well, I threw it away. Yeah, I don't think I would have been asked why. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's not sad, Bina. It's not sad. It's not, I mean, Norma, it's not sad. None of this is sad. It was wonderful. It was a gift, a capital G gift from the universe. Because in that throwing away of the 1 cent, I bought my freedom with that 1 penny. Right? I was not dependent on my father. You're going to give me stuff, you're going to give me stuff. I can do without it. It's either way, you know, that I never got that hook to money that like my siblings did. It was a big deal to them. I was upgraded later to 5 cents and all that, you know, or whatever. I can't even remember what it was. But, you know, it got a little bit more. I could actually do something with it a little bit. I'll tell you what I did with that in a moment too. But yeah, exactly, Norma. And because I thought about it so much, I got into the habit of thinking about it. Plus, it put me into a situation to accept responsibility for my decisions, to do what was right, regardless of the consequences. That was my first act of such an act. Yes, it's a deep act of integrity. I consciously wasted. And to this day, I struggle to waste. Yes. I mean, it's something that always stuck with me, something that really resonated with me, waste. But I knew this was not a waste. This was a necessary thing for me to do. I knew it then. And I did it. It was a very profound thing. And I was just so disgusted at the whole foolishness of it, because what part of it that disgusted me too was in my father's puerile, idiotic, childish mind, part of him, right? The full part. In his mind, I'm a little kiddie. I'll think 1 cent is a big deal. He thought I would be impressed by the 1 cent. Well, Father, you completely, your awareness, your estimation was like seriously way off the mark. And as Norma said, it's sad that he couldn't see. Wow, he didn't have to see me. He just couldn't see a child as a person. I was thinking about this. If I did have a child, that child would not call me dad or father or pa or anything like that. They'd call me so. And there would be no difference between how I would speak and relate to that child, that baby, than I do to Bina or to you, Norma. No difference whatsoever. None. From day go, I would speak to them the same way I'm speaking now. Whether they understood or not doesn't matter. I also know from my own experience that you hear things, it doesn't make sense, and then suddenly it all falls into place. Look what happens with language, right? All of a sudden it all falls into place and you can now speak. Yes. Well, same thing with these other conceptions. They may take a bit longer, but can you imagine the awesomeness of growing up where your parent or whoever, right, is not this big deal difference to you, where you automatically are being treated with the same respect and care as everybody else? How are you going to grow up in a relationship with that person? You are going to be able to always share. Whatever it is, you'd be able to share. I'm sharing what comes from me. You share what comes from you. Okay, you're a child, and I don't know, the teddy bear is a big deal to you. I don't even know if I'll give you a teddy bear or not, but still, right? If you're the child. But nonetheless, my point is your childish things that may be of importance to you or new things that you're learning, you're not going to learn stuff that you're going to have to unlearn, right? You're always going to be on that level where you can share your learning, you can share your growing, you can share whatever, right? There's no barrier to sharing. I know, I think this would be an incredible way to grow up. Yeah. And to have that understanding and awareness of all the moreness coming at you, even though you don't get it just yet, you're going to make that effort to get it. You're going to be in a whole other world. You're going to avoid all the nonsense that we go through as children. Yeah, yeah. It's a very big deal. Anyway, my main point that I wanted to make, Norma, is that, well, there's another story that I'll relate in a second here, all on part of the same topic. Yeah. Um, that this influence, it actually, I think, ended up going the other way. Yes. And it came with the eating story, right? So when I got a little older now, I used to eat in the kitchen because I went to sleep earlier. And well, we had maids at that time. We stopped having maids for whatever reason, I don't know, in that same place where we lived. Don't know why, but anyway, that time we had maids still, and they would take care of the food, and we'd eat, and they'd be horrified when I put sugar on my porridge. It's like, they had a formula. You could only put so much. I said, but it doesn't cover the whole thing, and it's not enough. Like, how does this make any sense? Well, they grumble, but it's like, hey, you know what? I'm deciding. And sorry if you object, too bad. I knew they didn't have the authority to do anything, so all right. Anyway, a little side note there. Well, come, I get a little bit older. Now I can go and join the main table with my father and my older brother, my older sister. And I think my younger sister, who's like 14 or 16 months younger than me, something like that, she got dragged along with it. All right. Well, anyway, so now we're at the main table. Now my eating habits, which were very well established by that time, come into focus because I'm a very particular eater, right? And certain things, I mean, they just taste like inedible to me. It's not, some things I just don't care for the taste, but I can eat them. Other things, it's like putting soap in my mouth. I can't eat it. Your body objects to it. It just says no, this is wrong, right? It's treats it as a poison. All right. Well, anyway, so now I never ever complained though. It was never an issue for me. Okay, I eat what I eat. If and don't dish up the things. When I was in the kitchen, I would just say no, thank you, and they would only put on my plate what I ate. Right? Was they got to learn after a while, and I never objected. I never said if there was whatever it is. I was always something that I could eat. Right? So I never had an issue from my point. I was never complaining. All right, so off we go, and we get stuff dished up for us, put on the plate. I didn't complain and say, why are you putting this stuff on my plate that's inedible to me, or make any fuss. I simply ate what I ate and left the rest. That was it. I thought it was a bit wasteful, but maybe they would learn. All right, well, now my father and, well, my mother also, you got to eat what's on your plate. Right? Now it becomes this big issue. Right? So the stuff's on my plate, and I get told, oh, you got to eat what's on the plate. You got to eat all your food. And right, I just acknowledge that I heard, and and eat what I eat and leave the rest. If you don't eat it, you know what's going to happen. Again, I don't say anything. I just let it be, right? And well, I'm going to get hiding. All right, so be it. Yeah. And I'm willing to take this, but I don't. I'm conscious of the strategy in that moment, because I see this as foolishness. This is not really a concern for me and my health and care. This is about ego and dominance and power and authority and all of this, right? Now, of course, if I start grumbling and upset, now you're in a fight. And of course, now it's made very clear that they have to now do this. All right, so I don't. All right, so fine. I get called up and said, first of all, he says, touch your toes. Yeah, there I go. I touch my toes. Now, his idea here is he wants humiliation, right? Because he just leaves you standing there for a while, standing there touching your toes. I was like, dude, if you think this is going to be an issue for me, you have no clue. Say, I don't feel humiliated. Touch my toes, so what? It's like, it's nothing. So, yeah, whatever, right? All right, I stand for I don't know how long touching my toes. Makes no difference. And then he comes with a shoe. Now, if ever you've had hidings, you'll know a shoe is not the worst thing to get hidings with. It's actually one of the better things to get hidings with, because it's a wide space and it spreads the blow, and it's, yes, it's not fun, but it's not like really a bad deal. It's quite endurable. It's not the end of the world. Anyway, so I get my few smacks, and now I go back to the chair. But when children get hidings, they always have that resentful angriness, right? And whenever you do that as a child, what does the parent do in response? They get even more mad at you, because now you're criticizing them indirectly, right? And you're legitimizing the hiding by being resentful in that weird logic. Yes? No, I wasn't angry or resentful. I was disappointed. Very mildly disappointed, right? But also resolute, accepting my punishment. Yes, I did this. It's fair enough. You said this, and it's fair. But I'm also disappointed. Just a tiny little bit of disappointment in there, right? Because I know where this is going, and I thought it through. I really thought this very much through, because it was, there was a previous time said, okay, the next time, I had plenty of time to think, what's going to happen with this disappointment? Yeah. There's going to be a reflection on my father, not on me. And he's going to be the one that has to think things through, and he has to consider his behavior. Yeah. And now in this, he's the one who's going to end up basically looking like a bully. Fine, I go and sit down, no problem, no complaint, no resentment, no fight involved, right? And the next time it happened again, same thing, that disappointment. Yeah. Yeah, I'm coming, Tasaba. Yeah. All right. Anyway, and now I see the second time, right? Now my sisters and my mother like, oh, shame the poor boy and blah, blah, right? And of course, he starts to look like this big bully and this big ogre and this mean bugger. And of course, what happens is that was it. It happened twice. And after that, he just ignored me. And I just ate whatever I want. Why? Because he saw that I had the integrity to stand up for my principles. I was willing to take the punishment for the crime, right? And I had that discipline to do it. And they saw, man, I got more discipline than them, right? And they didn't want to get into a battle of principles. So they gave it up and let me be. On that day, I won my freedom. For the rest of the time that I was involved with them, I essentially did my own thing. But I had to be impeccable at the same time. Yeah? Because if I weren't impeccable, they would pounce on that and say, oh, look at you, you want to. No, so I had to be impeccable, right? Then they would have used that as an opportunity to get in. So they they absolutely left me to my own devices, and I lived a free life after that. I bought my independence and freedom on that day. The point I want to make and why I'm telling the story is, if ever there was an influence, I feel I had more influence on them than they did on me. Right. I've got somebody who's come here. I have to take care of them. Bina, will you start reading the story? I'll listen
Okay.
and jump in here and there, but I'm just going to take care of Tassava real quick.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. No
yeah,
problem.
yeah. But
Yes, you
does that
can.
make sense in the story? What I'm saying about influence,
Yes.
Norma? Does that make sense?
Hopefully,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Hopefully. I mean, it's just. I'm making the point too that we live in different worlds, right? And we assume that the world is, most people have parents, and right, there's one parent, two parent, and things change and come and go, all sorts of different things involved. But no, sometimes things are radically different. And even though I had two parents, my entire relationship was completely different. Not only that, but the relationship between my parents and my other siblings, that was more normal and typical, right? So it wasn't like the whole family situation was different. No, it was just it was just with me. It was different. Hello, Tasava. I'm on Zoom. I'm on Zoom. All right, Bina. Oh, I can't mute myself. Can you mute me, Bina?
I can
Which way?
try and
Yeah.
see if I can. I will.
All right. All right. All right. Hello, Tasava.
No, I cannot.
All right. Hang on. I think I can turn my mic off. Hold on.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Ah,
Yes.
well, that didn't work. All right. Okay,
Okay.
hold on. Let me go mute myself. Let me go mute myself. Hang on, Tassava, one more. uh, thought I had a button on the mic. Turn it off. I'll mute. Hup. All right, you read me. I'm going to listen while you go. But I hope my
Yes.
story made sense, Norma. I'm really making the point here that things can be different. Now, I didn't think it was wildly different. To me, it was pretty normal. Yeah.
Yes.
I had no idea how different it was then. It just was what it was. I never thought in terms of difference or anything.
Yes.
All right, here we go. All right, see you in a little bit. I'm listening.
Yes. Yes. Before reading reading this story, start reading the story. I feel that this Sil shared this story, his story, and it has just made me realize that why we assume things. It is becoming almost like a, okay, in aware people community, it is almost a crime to assume things. But why actually we assume things? Because it's a convenient thinking. Yes, in Sil's words, it's a lazy thinking. Yes, because we want to save our energy. We don't want to actually invest energy in everything. And assumptions, because not just like foolishly out of nowhere, because of data. The data we have is majority or mostly is about that same pattern, same understanding. That's why we assume that, okay, yes, because 80% or 90% was that same answer, same perspective, same understanding, then the rest of 20% can also fall into that. Again, it must not be, but it is. And it because for me personally, I feel that because we want to save our energy and we don't want to put energy in everything. To thinking it through to the end, it requires energy. It needs energy. It has some other benefits on surface in the beginning, at least. It saves energy. Later on, it has consequences, and it just counterproductive. It takes more energy because it puts you in stress, and of course, assumptions cause other problems. But in immediate, in local, we assume that okay, we think that it's wasteful to thinking it and just put things in boxes and in criteria. And this is what mostly happened, that okay, if parents were there, they were alive, and they were like this, they had no influence on someone, by default we assume it must be sad. But in his case, actually it was not sad, at least for him. And I personally feel that uh, there are some parts where I feel a bit pity about his parents, Phil's parents, because they had no clue. They were clueless with whom they are actually dealing with. In their mind, logically, uh, they were dealing with their child, with their kid, but actually not. So was never been a regular normal child. And this is where we need to just put it in our awareness that not every child is same, not everyone is same, and we don't need to treat them same. Anyway, let's get back to the story because that was really exciting for me. Once upon a time, there was a curious circle. No, it was not curious to look at. The circle itself was curious. Wow, curious about everything. Especially, it was curious about itself. Not content to go round and round in the same place, like all the other circles. Biella's gaze fell upon the river. The circle decided it would get to know itself as well as it possibly could. So the circle started eating itself. Round it went, eating and absorbing all of itself. And it was glorious. She followed its course with a faraway look. But when the circle came back to where it had started, there was a problem. Circle was now bigger than it had been before because of all the knowledge it had of itself. The circle could now see its old self a little below where it was now, but it could not see all of itself at once. The circle once again started to eat its new self, wanted to know all of itself at once. With the new knowledge of itself, the circle was now able to more quickly know itself. That's what the circle called eating itself. Again, the circle came to the end, and again, the circle could see down on itself, as again it had grown bigger. And again, the circle decided to know itself. Round it went, coming to the end quicker and quicker. Round and round it went, ever quicker and ever higher. The more the circle went around, the closer the circle came to knowing itself. Biella's gaze moved back up to the high river, round and round and round, until the turn was so quick it was hardly a circle anymore. The circle had become so tiny it was just a point. From that point, the circle could finally see itself. It still kept on knowing itself, but the circles were so tiny now, mere specks, that knowing them was instant. Then the circle realized something very, very important. Biella breathed in the river, letting it fill her spirit. The circle realized it was no longer a circle, it had become something else. By feeding on itself in that ever continuous loop, it had become a spiral, and spirals continue on forever. We sat in silence for a while, allowing the fable to permeate. Everything seemed to be in balance. Biella thought she got herself seemed to be. That made her wonder she would be extra watchful. You like the fable format, Camellias? Yes, but interestingly, I like it as a summation, as you presented here, rather than an introduction. same for me. Biella agreed. Therein lies the magic of
One
taking
moment,
that
one
lane
moment,
for growth.
one moment. I want to go over that comment where Camellias says it's presented as a summation rather than an introduction. It's a very interesting comment, no?
Yes.
I mean, mostly when you see fables, like he says, they are to introduce a subject and then it goes from there. But he's savvy enough and sophisticated enough to recognize Biella's sophistication and her intense kindness and courtesy, right? In that she shares the spiral fable as a summation for him, not as an introduction. She's taking her perceptions, her acute awareness, her moreness, and sharing it in a way which is not a telling, but yet it's also a summation. She's saying, this is how I see it, and this is my external view. But it's presented in such a way that there's no pressure in it whatsoever, right? It's still a summation, but a summation without pressure. A very big deal, yes?
Yes.
And there's a patience involved in it also.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, sometimes in that eating of ourselves, we get indigestion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's where Camellias is at, see? Now, Biella's making this subtle point. She doesn't say anything about it. In the fable, the circle just goes and feeds and it becomes a spiral and it's all magical and wonderful. But it's the implication that we aren't, this isn't happening to us, so what's wrong? Well, we don't eat as easily because we got things that we don't care to swallow. See? And look at the expression, that's hard to swallow. Yeah?
Yes.
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that
Yes.
amazing? Good Norma. Norma did get my point on the story. You know, I struggle to share stories like that, by the way. Yeah. Because you know, some part of me feels like those are self-aggrandizing stories. And I don't mean it that way at all. And I can't see them that way because that's just how it was for me. It just is what it is, right? It took me a long time, all my life really, to be able to make peace with being able to share those stories. That's just how it was. Who knows? Like Norma says, I come from a different planet. All right, maybe, I don't know. Whatever it is, that's just how it was for me. But I think it's important to be aware that there can be difference. I just felt that things worked out in a very nice way that put me on that path. But I think that, and I saw kids have this awareness, but they learned to eliminate it and they learned to be normal and they learned to be stupid, really.
Oh, yes. Oh,
To fit in,
yes.
to survive, right? You
Oh,
know
yes.
this, Pina, right?
Yes. Yes.
Now, because I won my independence on that day of the hiding, right? And I made every effort to avoid being in the company of my parents, and therefore I lived my own life. Plus, just not long after that, I had that incident in the bathroom, right, where it was about appropriateness and about having a public side and a private side. Private, not secret. Was there for anybody. If they asked, I would have told them, but it's still private, right? It means that I didn't volunteer to share it. It's just not necessary. And in that difference, I was able to be in my own growing and learning, which was fantastic. But yet I was a normal kid, right? I wasn't that loner, that outsider, whatever, right? And troublemaker, whatever. So I was appropriate and did everything that I was expected of and supposed to be relative to who I was. But yet inside, I lived my life and grew and learned and did all these important things. Right? And I'm making this point that we can, if anything, I think, to carry that over if ever there were a next life. This is something I would profoundly remember, is to have this appropriate side and appropriate externally in the world and appropriate internally. That's what I did. Yes. It's very powerful. Very, very powerful. Anyway, keep reading, Bina. Keep reading. I'm just jumping in. Just everything is connecting. It's most awesome. Yes.
Okay.
I
Okay.
was enjoying listening to you. I just wanted to jump in on that point of the fable. I just wanted to jump in there.
Yes.
It's so much
Definitely.
nuance there, the sophistication of it. And yes, Biella has a big problem. And this problem is her, uh, her awareness of not sharing too much, not helping as much as she wants to hold back, to let it come. Patience. She's practicing patience. Yes. But you can't not
Yes.
share, because if she doesn't share and doesn't engage, then the tap is going to be closed, because nobody wants to impose on somebody else, right? So now you've got to
Mm.
listen with interest to keep the flow going, because this is what's needed. Yes. But also not say things that are going to be giving advice, etc. Yeah. I mean, yes, the fable is kind of advice, but in a roundabout way. Very gentle, very subtle. Can be taken or leaven. It's a free sharing. All right, please carry on, Bina. Please carry on.
Yes. Same for me. Yeah, I agreed. Herein lies the magic of it. Taking that knowing from earlier, that knowledge and understanding, and transforms it into something delicious, something warm and cozy, something we want to hear again and again. It's a favorite technique of sharing with the new nobility. We like to tell stories. I find it interesting. This is the word, sir.
Second syllable, impetus. Impetus.
Impetus. Okay. Your impetus make to things relatable. Interesting because it never really occurred to me. Camellias laughed at that.
Your impetus to make things relatable. He says relatable, right? He does separate it out, right? As opposed to relatable, right? Relatable. He's an overemphasis on it.
Relatable.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. I just, because it never occurred to him to do that.
Mm.
And we're making the fable was making the circumstance, the situation, relate able to provide the ability to relate. Relatable is more to say, hey, this applies to me, I'm in the same boat. That's a slightly different thing than the ability to relate. Biella is relating with Camellias, even though she's not in the same boat. His story is not relatable to her, but she has the ability to relate to him, to relate. She's relate able. Yeah. Why he makes that discernment, that distinction there. Camellias is fascinating in that he is so sophisticated and yet also oblivious at the same time. It's a common point that we all share, but we really see this big time in Camellias.
Yes.
Very noticeable. Never occurred to him to make things relatable. In his world, you shared as the professor, and the students they have to just figure out, catch up. No thought to making it relatable for them, to put it in such a way that they are able to relate. Not that it's relatable, because, well, especially in abstract philosophical things, when it's dry theory, very little of it is actually relatable. Right? It's all new. You never lived there. You're coming into a different world. Now, isn't that amazing, Bean? Really big point.
Yes. That right there is why Camellias is such an important character in this story of mine and Arshila and the other aspirants. There are always stories unfolding all around us. Camellias has his story also. Biella considers all the perspectives. That journey, that transformation of his. That's why I love him dearly as a character.
Yeah,
He,
this is Biella now going inside, and she's staying in that third person perspective that's so favored by Camellias. And it's a helpful perspective to regard ourselves in that third person way, to see ourselves as a character sometimes in the circumstance, right? It just gives us that extra perspective. Yeah. She does it with herself and with Camellias. Yeah. Yeah.
Biella
Yes,
smiled
Norman.
at her thoughts. Camellias added, and you see, I always characterized that as pandering or trying to help the hopeless case masters. Now I'm beginning to see the value in it for me.
This is a double nuanced statement. One, he is saying, I'm seeing the value in it for me in terms of the story and how she's not pandering to him, but being exquisitely considerate. Secondly, he's also seeing the value of him doing what Biella is doing, right? So he's seeing the value as a student, as a teacher, and the value as a student. Now, of course, Biella doesn't have student and teacher in her language; doesn't exist. You just share. You people, everybody's persons, and you share, right? You're all sentient beings. We just share, right? And whether you know it or not, for the new nobility, it doesn't matter. If it comes up, you share. That's it, and you hear it again. And because there's always more to be extracted, you can hear things again and again. So I'm not sharing because I think you need to know it. No, I'm sharing because there's some internal or external attunement reason for the sharing, right? Very different system, very, very different system. But this point for Camellias, he is acknowledging that both he needs to update his sharing, in his word, teaching mechanisms, and he is he is actually a student, even though he never thought of himself as one. Not that he didn't think that he knows everything, but not he didn't think of himself as a typical student, right? Clueless and ignorant, in other words. And it's one thing for a professor to learn, it's another thing for a student's learning, right? Two different learnings. But yeah, he's beginning to realize, oh, in this situation, he is the complete noob student from a backwater world that's clueless about things, right? I mean, some students go to university and they can fit in and mesh. They come from a culture that's very similar. Others, they come from the sticks and the boondocks and they got no clue, and it takes them a long time to fit in and assimilate and learn to learn and everything. It's all foreign. Yeah. He's realizing he's that one, that fish out of water. He said it before. Yeah. Anyway,
Hmm.
keep going. Yeah. Yeah. So it's good awareness though, right? But it's how he deals with this, because he emphasizes me and it's in all caps.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Now
Yes.
keep in mind, right, that this Camellias, when we speak, it's hard to speak in all caps and italics, but this was written by Camellias, at least the character, right? That the
Hmm.
person that Camellias is based on. So it's very profound. It's real. I never changed a single word of this. Right? It's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Yes, Biala proclaimed, receiving such a jolt of energy. She jumped slightly from her sitting position and hugged Camellias. Miss Biala was,
Proclaimed. Sorry,
yes,
proclaimed, not agreed, exclaimed, proclaimed. A proclamation is something that you put out into the world, that this is something that when you, a proclamation in the old days, the king or the lord, whoever said, and you had to abide by this, right? This is a new state of being, how the world is. Her yes in what she's saying to, she is making his statement through her energy into something which isn't just an observation, but as a proclamation, means it's something that needs to be adhered to and followed, right? She's assisting
yeah.
Camellias as best she possibly can. Now, of course, it's the proclamation. Her proclamation doesn't have much force. It's a by implication proclamation, but she's assisting Camellias with every ounce of her being in this, saying that, Camellias, your awareness that this is something for you to do, that it's not pandering, but it's exquisite care and consideration, and it's a moreness, but also that he is the student, that he can update his teaching, and also he's now needs to update his conception of himself, right, as a student. She says that her agreement is a proclamation, and because it's so powerful, she gets this jolt of energy, right? When things fall into place, that me that's capitalized and emphasized is so significant and so implicative, and not something Camellias was able to do before. It's a milestone that is crossed, right? There's more to come. And she's, but this at least is, yes, we're getting somewhere, right? It's going in the right direction. That's why she's so excited, and she hugs Camellias, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
As Biella was hugging Camellias, two new nobles walked by. One was heard to say, "It's all a spiral you see, from the hopeless pandering to the related mass of the cause, to its value to us personally." Okay, I need to read this again. It's all a spiral you see, from the hopeless pandering to the related mass of the cause to its value to us personally.
The related mass of the cause.
Okay,
This is a
mass.
different use of mass, as in this is the weight of the cause. Yes,
Okay,
we add masses as in people, different use of the word here, right? Yeah.
okay, okay. Mass of the cause of its to its value to us personally. Camellias was
Yeah.
amazed, like they looked into my.
Yeah. And that's what
Oh,
Biella
I
is doing.
love it. Biella was delighted.
One moment, Bina, one moment. Yes, they are looking into you, right? And this is part of the story, is to communicate a bit through that, how much Biella is able to look inside Camellias. Camellias has no idea just yet how much he's starting to get an inkling. But I think he would absolutely run away if he were to be aware that Biella sees all of him, warts and all. Never mind warts, he sees everything about. Right? He's naked to her, completely and utterly, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, everything, right? And if he's beginning to realize this, but in a gentle way, right? And she doesn't say that, yes, I do see it. Can you go back one slide, Vina? Want to go over the statement the two new nobles make. There was a lot in it, right? The spirus, from the hopeless pandering to the related mass of the cause, right? Now, hopeless pandering, it happens all the time. But then that pandering has some relation, some weight to the cause, the thing that's involved, to its value to us personally. It all connects, in other words. So they're saying in another way, there's moreness in everything. We just have to reach in and extract it. Yes? It doesn't matter. It all connects. It's a spiral. That hopeless pandering may seem like complete nonsense, but when you start to connect it to the mass of the cause, the issue, the thing that's of importance, and then to us value personally, it all connects. It connects as a spiral. Yes? See? When you pursue it, it starts to get tighter and closer, and then you see that, I see how this works for me. Make sense, Bina?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a very peculiar way of saying it, but it gets the attention, you see, and it grabs Camellias, right? Like they looked into my spirituality also. Absolutely, Norma. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Implicative. That's it, Norma. Once we learn to train our brain, well, first of all, we have to learn about implications. We are all geniuses at implications. We just neglect the skill. Why? Because we grow up in a hypocritical world. In a world of hypocrisy, your skill of implication is a death sentence. You cannot see the implications, because if I see the implications of the nonsense that you're saying, say, but you're being a hypocrite, right? That's the implications for most people's behaviors. They do one thing and say another. When you look at the implications, if you look at them individually, when they say, oh, you shouldn't do this, yes, yes, yes. When they do it, they make out like it's no big deal and it's okay to do, etc., etc., right? But no, you can't be saying one thing and doing another. It's being a hypocrite. right? So we cannot see implications as children. Bina knows this very intimately. She got in trouble for saying it, and she learned not to say it, yes, and to somewhat hide her ability to see implications. But when you don't, and that was my benefit, I saw, look at those stories I did about my father, the implications of the 1 cent, and the implications of his ego, and the implications of my disappointment in him. Like, man, you should know better. Come on, you're behaving just like everybody else. You're doing this usual, typical. You're supposed to be special and more, and yeah, you go and do the same stuff, right? I caught him in his own game and used his own ego against him, and he had to leave me alone, right? Otherwise, he couldn't live with himself, and his ego wouldn't allow him to do it. So it was a really cool strategy, but all because of implications. And this skill of implications is profound, right? Now, you don't know for sure always, but that's also part of it, right? So if you are going to connect the implications, you need humility also, because otherwise you become arrogant, and all works together. But yes, we can see implications in anything as implications. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Spirituality, emotional, psychological, doesn't matter. Right. And when we learn to think by terms of implications and practice the skill, the whole world opens up to us. All the secrets and mysteries start opening up to us. It's incredible. Not all, but I mean, a profound value. You really get to see so much more of the world. It's amazing. And when you listen to people, right, and you listen to the implications, they'll tell you all the secrets without even realizing it. It's an incredible thing. Like Camellias is doing here. Yes. Yeah, very powerful. All right, keep going, please, Pina. Love this, love this. Just enjoying listening to you, like Norma said, just enjoying the beauty in your voice. Not necessarily that you have a beautiful voice. Yes, you do. But it's to listen to the beauty in the voice, or the beauty that comes through. It's your beauty we're hearing via your voice. Different thing.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, please.
Oh, I love it. Biella was delighted. This kind of thing happens to us all the time. But unless one is in the middle of it, it's difficult to explain and communicate. These little, tiny miracles keep us connected and refreshed. Sometimes, like this, they are simply agreements from the universe. Other times, lessons, path indications, clues, prompts, stimulus, many different kinds of, many different kinds. All so marvelous, Sierra said.
Right. So that those two new nobles, right? If we go back to that, what they said, right? They say something that's quite profound, and it could have been said simpler. But the way they say it is peculiar. It's off. It's odd. It's unusual, right? Making it somewhat anomalous, right? Right? It's all a spiral, you see, from the hopeless pandering to the related mass of the cause. The related mass of the cause. I mean, that sentence you could unravel, and it's just a very powerful way of saying a lot in a very short way to its value to us. But that middle line, the first two are normal, the middle one is odd, right? It makes it anomalous. And because it's anomalous, it has extra meaning. Yes. And this is what Biella is saying. In this case, it's like an agreement from the world. She's pointing out that this is how the new nobility live. These things, these anomalies, these are things that make no sense, that are impossible. These things happen, and they are very, very, very powerful. Yes. And it's well worth us paying attention to them. Like in this case, it's likely just an agreement from the world, just to let you know, yes, you're on the right track. An incredible thing. Incredible thing. Very, very powerful. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. That's all I wanted to say. Just that's an anomaly right there. It's very difficult to write anomalies, by the way. Because when they happen, they're so impossible. How do you write and describe what's impossible? It's very hard to do. So I was very pleased to be able to put that in there, because it happened in real time. I don't know how it came about, but it happened, and it was anomalous, and I put it in. Yeah. Please keep going, gorgeous Bean.
Okay, all caught up, Camellia suddenly said, as if things had somehow fallen into place just then. I must say I'm surprised at the turn of events. When I first heard how accomplished our polymath Ursula was. I was a bit surprised to think that you or any of the group would be impressed by an expert player of the status quo game, but I accepted it as a descriptor. It was part of who Ursula was, and I could accept that without attributing any glamour to it.
Mm.
So I was surprised again to learn no one was impressed, not even Ursula herself. Then, of course, comment above about having the right of it made perfect sense. Biella giggled slightly. I love that you were surprised. The new nobility have a strong counter culture. They continually employ and partake of activities which break down any habits of structuring, especially when it comes to ego construct.
Big deal, big deal, big deal. Oh, so much in this, right? First of all,
Yes.
that the blanket assumption from Camellias that his way of perceiving the world via the superiority paradigm is that, well, Ursula's an expert at the superiority game, right? Hierarchy, etc. The status quo game, that's what it means, right? Hierarchy, superiority. That he just said, well, that's who she was. But, he sort of thought that, well, he took it for granted that, he took it for granted that others would be impressed by it. Yes. But then I was a bit too surprised to think that you or any of the group would be impressed, right? So he assumed that Biella and the group were impressed by Ursula because, but he was surprised because, well, you're not supposed to be, but yeah, you are. He couldn't separate out when they were paying attention to Ursula that they and appreciating Ursula that they are doing so according to a criteria which is completely foreign to him. So the only reason that he could see or think in his mind that they would be impressed by Ursula was because she was expert at this, right? That she was accomplished at playing this game. So he was surprised, and rightfully so. He should be surprised because that's absolutely not something they would do. Then it turns out that no, they weren't surprised. He's even more surprised, and not even Ursula herself. So now his world is completely upended. Yes. He assumed motivations and things that impress people, and so wow, no, that didn't work. They're completely unimpressed. They're not saying it's a negative, just no one was impressed. Not even it was a non-issue, right? And now the comment about having the right of it made perfect sense, right? In other words, that she was in control of herself. That's by having the right of it. Yes, yeah. And then Biala's comment this, that I love that you were surprised because the new nobility have a counterculture, right? In the classic sense of that term, right? Like the hippies were a counterculture, but you get other countercultures, right? Anything that's not following the usual, the normal, is a counterculture. And they take in activities which break down any habits of structuring, especially when it comes to ego constructs. And this is what I was trying to share with Joseph when we had about the archetypes, right? Archetypes are particularly a very specific and a deliberate way of structuring the world. Yes. The new nobility say, no, thank you very much. I mean, that works for you and we love it and it's great and it has great value. But we aren't you. We know this and we don't expect you to be us. We don't expect us to be you. What works for you doesn't necessarily work for us, right? Doesn't mean it's wrong. Doesn't, no, it's wonderful. It works for you. It's great, but doesn't work for us, right? In the same way, you eat lentils or cabbage or cauliflower or peas or beans or, well, it works for you. Doesn't work for me. Yeah. So it's the same thing, right? There's just difference. Just because something works for somebody, we can't, or a great many, we can't assume it's going to work for everybody. And the structuring is very much the new nobility want to say, no, we don't want the structuring. Why? Because to them, structure is limiting. They have structure, of course, but it's a fluid, adaptable structure. That's their structure, the structure of process, the structure of adaptability, the structure of appropriateness. It's structure that's non-structure. Yes? Make sense,
Yes.
Bina? Right. And
Yes.
ego constructs, that's the other problem, right? You can easily get caught up in with the stereotypes, the archetypes. I mean, stereotypes, same thing. But with the archetype, I'm a this and that. And when people say, you know what, I don't know, I'm a priest, I'm a healer, I'm a this, they add, there's an ego element to it. I'm now special because I'm a healer. It gives them value, it gives them status, it bolsters self-confidence that's not necessarily there. Right? It gives them that place in society. Of course, the new nobility say, hey, I'd rather feel self-confident and trust myself, love myself, and have general competence that doesn't rely on something external. Right? I want it to be internal and real. Right. Structuring is boxing in another way. Right? Limitations. Yes.
Yes.
Now, of course, when you say, yeah, but all kids need structure. Yes, that's just so that they have something to hang on to because they haven't developed points of self-confidence yet, because they are still learning competence. Yes. And if you don't have general competence, it's almost impossible to have self-confidence. If you don't have competence in being able to figure things out, for instance, right? And to be able to trust your ability to figure things out, your ability to be adaptive, to be fluid, to be flexible, your ability to be appropriate. This is a skill that we have to learn and acquire, right? We have some natural ability to do this, but unfortunately, our natural tendency is to be appropriate in the short term. And this is the big failing of humanity. It's all short term, short term, short term. And this is our culture. This is our conditioning. It may even be in our DNA. But the moment we shift from looking at short term appropriateness to longer term appropriateness, then the whole world changes. Then everything changes, because typically then whatever is appropriate in the short term becomes inappropriate in the long term. And we realize, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, right? And everything changes. It's a massive, massive big deal, right? And this is the structure, unfortunately, right, in our society, is a structure of satisfying short term. And also the structure of obedience, for instance, yes? The structure of hierarchy. All of this, our whole life has all of these various structures in it. But when you say, well, wait a second, can I think for myself? Can I choose for myself? Well, yeah, you can. Oh, but that means I'm going to be going against the structure. Yes, kind of. But you can go against it and still do your own thing, and you're not necessarily being a rebel or fighting. You're saying, well, that's your thing. I'm just going to do mine. Right? So there's other ways of doing things. But this unhooking from the structure of society in general, that's a very big deal. That's a very, very, very big deal. Yeah. It's very important because we need to unhook from our own structures of should be, supposed to, must. Yes.
Yes.
I can't do this. I can't do that. I have to do this. I have to do that. I should do this. I should do that. We don't even realize how much that is. That is the biggest structure of all: should and must and supposed to. When you start unhooking from that, everything changes. The world does not work the way I think it does. We need to remember that. Yes, structures the birth of politics. Others trying to tell you what to do. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Politics is just all about power and hierarchy and dominance and superiority and ego. True politics really should be about administration, discussion. What's the most ideal way to do this? And it's collaboration. Okay, let's put all the ideas together and figure out a way to do it. That happens sometimes, but in general, no. Right? I mean, really, if you get down to it, politics shouldn't be politics. It should just be admin. And that's how it is in the agglomeration. They don't really have politics in the usual sense. They have administration. That's it. But also they have a very peculiar rule about being a politician. You get to be a politician up to the age of 25. That's it. After that, no more. No more. So all their politicians are the youth. Think about it. Think about it, right? Now, if this sounds preposterous to you, let's start in a different direction. Do the politicians that we have now, that we've had for centuries, do they really serve us? No. Who are the least trusted of occupations in the world? Politicians. That's it. Who has the least respect? Politicians. My point is, the existing current system is not working clearly. This has been proven over and over and over and over again. Now, at what point do you say, let's keep hoping it might somehow work? No. All right. Now, look up, I think they may have been called the Parkland Five or the Parkland Group, right? And this was from the Parkland school shooting. It happened a couple of years ago, more than a couple now. And there was at the time this group of 17, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, some even younger, but there was a core group that came out of this. And they went on TV. They organized one of the biggest marches in American history ever at that age. At that age, right? They were responsible, they were mature, they were sophisticated. I mean, the one guy said, look, it's a pity this guy isn't of age yet, but I would sponsor him right now to run for office. I'd give him every bit of money that he needs to get into office. And this was a seasoned veteran politician, right? Saying this because he saw the value. My point is, when you think back, we say, yeah, but you have the youth going to be running things. We can't say that because, right, those Parkland group, right, that did all this, they're not typical. And when you think back to at school, right, if you happen to be one of those who was into politics and wanted to change the world and into charity and doing good and all the stuff, right, you had energy, you had a fever even. It was a burning thing in you. And you were very responsible, you were very mature in your thinking in this, right? But there were many other kids who couldn't get two hoots about it. They were into the latest song and the fashions and God knows what, all right? So we can't think that, oh, youth is running the thing. No, it's not youth in general. It's the exceptions that you want. At that age, starting somewhere in your mid-teens and going up into your mid-20s, right? Look back at in time, right? Look at like at the 60s when there was a lot of student activity. They made things happen. That's where the energy, the power, the earnestness comes from. Those who happen to end up being interested in politics or causes, it's not just politics, but charity, whatever, right? Changing the world. They have an earnestness to them that's profound. What happens to that earnestness as they go up? It goes away. Yeah. Now, if you harness that, that's why they in the agglomeration. That's it. You want to get into politics. That's it. They call it politics still, but it's really admin. You want to change the world. That's it. You do it now, and it forces because you can't be in there over 25. It gets all those old fogies that sit there for decades and decades and just get entrenched and get solid and all the corruption. No, there's that youth. Where's corruption? They're idealistic. This is exactly who you want running things, the idealists, right? But youth that are idealistic also have the energy to actually do things. This is on Norma's comment of structuring. The new nobility understands structure, and taking in this instance, they take it and they turn it on its head, right? And they make a structure that is a non-structure, right? Now, this of the youth now of being this, they take that energy and earnestness because when you setting up your life, right? You at age 25, you got to go and find something else to do. If you messed up as a politician, well, you're not going to really be able to get a good job, and everybody's seen you mess up on public. So you're going to be very cautious and very careful. Now, of course, it doesn't mean that you can't ask for advice, right? You can't learn from those older. Of course you can. And you're going to because you're responsible, you're earnest, you're looking to do the best you can. Because, right, when you have that deep sense of responsibility, if it falls on you, you take this as seriously as anything ever. Yes. And you are going to pay every bit of energy that you have. And you have a lot of energy because you're in that spot of youth where you're at maximum energy. You have a lot of energy to make the effort to do the research, to do. Man, I remember at that age, how thorough, how diligent, and to what extremes I could go. You don't see that ever, right? So it's a profound thing. It sounds crazy at first, but when you think it through, it's not crazy at all. It's very, very, very sensible. And again, I encourage, if you have any thoughts about this, look up that Parkland group, right? They're unbelievable. They're unbelievable when you see them, right? And they're not They're not uncommon. They connected with others across the country, and they organized this nationwide march, the biggest ever at the time, right, against guns being foolishly being able to buy, and gun reform and all this, right? Because somebody came into the school and shut up all their friends, right? It's a very big deal. But now you look at what they actually did. Yes, they accomplished an incredible amount at that age. So don't tell me that they can't do this, right? No, they can, right? It's just that we need to take that and harness it. It gets wasted. By the time people get into this older, because I think they have to be like 29, I think, to be in the House of Representatives, the youngest, I think, or 27, something like that. And a senator is like 35. By that time, you've moved on, you've gotten children, and now it's like, I couldn't be bothered anymore. I got to do my usual things now. All that energy and passion goes waste, right? Very appropriate. So structure, I'm saying we can use structure differently. And this is what the new nobility do. They're acutely aware of the confinements and limitations of structure. And they make every effort not to fall into those traps. Yeah. They don't live by structure, not the usual structures anyway. Make sense, Norma? Yeah. Very cool. All right, keep going, keep going. Please, please, beautiful being.
Okay, where we were.
The end of this. We were at the end of this. They continually employ and partake activities which break down structure, especially ego constructs.
I have sometimes wished I could be as emotionally honest as Camellias trailed off. But it seems so too hard line to be so unwilling to compromise. Too mean to not once more wearily play to expectation. Finished. His mood shifting ever so slightly.
And here we have a regression from Camellias. He acknowledges that to be as emotionally honest as Ursula is, right? As Biella, as the group. Right? And he says it in the past tense. I have sometimes wished I could be, right? It's past and present kind of mixed in there, right? But it seems too hardline to be so unwilling to compromise. Again, a double-layered, nuanced comment, right? He's saying he is being too hardline and unwilling to compromise, or in his unwillingness to compromise. This is too hardline, yeah.
Yes.
Because he thinks that if he does what Ursula does, he is once more falling into the trap of expectation. He feels that he is expected to do what Ursula does, not realizing at all that no, Camellias, no, you're not necessarily expected to do it. It's a choice. It's a free choice. But his adherence, his habituation of structure makes him think that this is one more structure. He cannot comprehend that it's a completely, utterly free choice. Yes, you have the choice to choose foolishly. Doesn't make it any less free. Yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Hmm.
Biella took note. An unusual comment, somewhat out of context, seemed indirectly connected to the flow of their conversation. But this Biella had been waiting for. But this Biella had been waiting for. Much
Hmm.
was going on inside Camellias. These utterances, reflections of his inner world, which would allow Biella to reflect back. Those inner revealings, when containing the uncomfortable, typically came out somewhat scrambled.
Right. That's very important. Astute psychological observation from Biella. She's aware that when we are in flux, in turmoil, in crisis, that the truths that we need to hear, they don't always come out very clearly, come out a bit scrambled, because there's a part of you that's trying to get you to hear, and it knows that you're not wanting to hear this inside yourself because it's too awful a truth. So it scrambles a bit so that you kind of get the clue and a hint, and it makes it a little bit easier to digest. Yes. It
Yes.
pre-chews the food for you. Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Biella considered. She felt. She waited. Yes. She finally said and added peculiarly, slipping into third person, using an informal tone. What do you think the prognosis is for Camellias, considering these latest perspectives? Camellias went straight into the same perspective shift. I like his character. I think he has a spot. He's perhaps a bit grumbly and woolly, which is a nice counterpoint to some of the more bushy-tailed. Yes.
Why?
Where's he headed? Asked Viala. A deeper interest aroused. She had a sense it wasn't necessarily obvious. Camellias would return to his home world. The delegates had no time limit to the visit. A few had returned already. The rest seemed content to find their own way around. None of them had requested Biella or reached out to Ursula. She would get word to them to attend the original storytelling later. Biella made a mental note to ask Ursula to do so.
Yeah, that little mental note there, that yes, she can get the other aspirants to get the word to the delegates, but making the note to get Ursula to do so specifically, it is just gives an opportunity for Ursula to entrench and cement her relationship as the go-between the delegates and the new nobility, right? A very important relationship.
Yes.
Very important point. Yeah, yeah. And also look how she gives that same mechanism that our subconscious or our greater self, higher self, whatever you want to call it, uses to communicate with us, right? With what we say. We're saying it about somebody else, but actually it applies to us, etc. She switches to the third person to give Camellias a bit more space between himself and himself. Thank you, Norma. Thank you, Norma. I'm enjoying your comments, Norma, as always.
Yeah. Cornelius took his time answering. In your story, I don't know, you began. Biella marveled how the detached perspective and third person stance brought forth such revealing insights. Quite exceptional. But the arc of his tale is usually the loner, who has to struggle with something by himself, on his own, mentally or physically. Something, of course, pertinent to his learning and development, something which he then can take back to the tribe as a good. Does he see himself as going back? How would that be shaken up? So as not to conform to the usual arc, she prompted. Well, it could be something collaborative. I mean, do you see him going back to his homeworld? Yella asked more pointedly, keen to press the issue a bit, sensing ambivalence in him.
And yeah, we come to the crucial point. We'll get to it in a moment. That's an interesting point that you make about Ursula. Yes, she does things in a topsy-turvy way because she's jumping out of structure, right? This is her opportunity. She's saying, I'm not going to follow structure. I'm going to do it backwards, but yet it's going to make me go forwards, right? She realizes that undoing from structure, you do things differently and you actually do go forward in a profound way, even though you are going backwards, it seems. It only seems so. It's backwards compared to the usual, but forwards compared to moreness. Yeah, yeah. Very, very profound. And here Biella comes to, she does seize the opportunity to get Camellias to essentially declare, right? To not, because if he's going to stay in that ambivalence, he's going to really be stuck. And he makes his decision here. It's not the decision she would have preferred, but she respects his decision. Yeah. Right, Bina?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we know what's coming now, right? He says, yes, you'll go back, but let's keep
Yes.
going. Yeah, yeah. Very cool, Norma. Very cool.
Or to really shake it up, he could turn out to be a mole for the empire. We must laugh at this.
Yeah.
Biella was not sure at all to which empire he was referring, but his laugh was infectious. She laughed with him. He slightly surprised Biella by saying, "Yes, why would he not go back to his homeworld? This is like a conference weekend, right? Sheesh, you people 2 days out of the office and suddenly you are booking flights to a rim world and planning startup ventures."
See, but that is exactly how the new nobility are. They can be out of the office for 2 days, out of the usual. And yes, they will say, we can go anywhere. They have that freedom. They can book a flight to the real world. Now he's using Star Trek analysis here. The Empire is a Star Trek Empire. Star Wars, sorry. Star Wars Empire. And the rim worlds are very far away from the core where all the stuff happens in Star Wars, right? And there are books about the rim world and stories that take place in the rim world, but they're really far away, right? And so this is like extreme to go there, right? And planning startup ventures, new, unexpected, something's completely from scratch, which to Camellias is like, this is just craziness. But to the new nobility, absolutely not. You do what's appropriate. If that's where you need to go, that's where you need to go. He hasn't yet understood attunement, right? It's not them being frivolous or spontaneous or careless or whatever, irresponsible. No, it's the exact opposite. When you live in attunement, you are deep, deep into capital R responsibility because you see that doing what is asked of you as the most profound responsibility you can adhere to. How do you not? How do you not? Really powerful. But now it's really where Camellias, the difference starts to come in, right? In this. Yeah. Yeah.
Biella was not sure how to take the remark. So much to it. She decided to reply with something neutral and see where it led. Yes, although there isn't a time limit for the visit of the delegation, they can stay as long as they like. As individuals, they are not bound as a group.
I see
They
again,
can
sorry to interrupt here. Biella is making a point here in a subtle way to say, Camellias, you hear delegates and you assume, like usual, there's a time limit for their visit. Your assumptions, even though you aren't deliberately and consciously making that assumption, it's just built into your statement, right? It's just this inadvertent assumption that you assume that because the delegates say they're on a short time limit. Says who? Where did you get this idea from? You purely assumed it. There's no time limit. These delegates can stay here forever if they want. Interesting, yes? Very subtle way to reminding Camellias, stop assuming, stop assuming, stop assuming. The world here clearly does not work according to your structure. No, there's a very different structure in place here. It's a meta structure, right? The structure of appropriateness. Right, Bina? Make sense? No unions. Nope. No. Bina, any comments? Did Bina drop off?
no, no, no.
Oh, good. Oh, good. It's a profound thing. It's a profound thing. And
Yes.
Camellias is so out of his depth for all his sophistication. He is completely and utterly out of his depth. In this one comment, it's revealed how much he's bound to the usual structure, that he doesn't even question that this assumption that the delegates are there for a short term only.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a profound thing.
Yes.
Profound thing.
They can stay as long as they like as individuals. They are not bound as a group. Their coming was arranged by the egg. Now that they are here, the new nobility, via myself, and now also Ursula, deal with them. It's completely open as to how things go. You and Ursula are typical delegates. Biella
Atypical.
mixed her atypical delegates. Biella mixed her tenses and perspectives, but let it stand. She trusted her intuitive expression, especially with the transition.
And she recognizes that Camellias is in transition.
Yes,
Does he actually finish that or not? This is the question. Transition to what?
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Camellias again said something interesting. I can't tell you for myself. I'm hoping
No,
we
no,
do
no.
get.
Two different sentences. Sorry.
Okay, I can't tell you. For myself, I'm hoping we do get out the classroom and into the field at some point. Pierre found it revealing he considered himself to be in a classroom, but she couldn't get a grip on what he may consider getting out in the field to mean. She'd stay neutral and noxious,
Innocuous.
innocuous,
Hmm.
innocuous. Okay. The rest are mostly career politicians or diplomats. Ursula came because she is the rising star and wanted to calm her. Her world is newly discovered, not a part of the egg yet. She wanted Camellias to have a chance to get to that place inside himself which seemed unresolved. Camellias added, maybe a visit to another world, one which isn't represented in the delegation. I don't know.
And this suggestion of Camellias's does in fact come to pass later. Biella, Ursula, the group, all the aspirants, some of the delegates, and Camellias all do in fact go on an excursion, because there is a new contact situation to a world very similar to our world, and it's been discovered, and Biella is asked to be the new contact, the first contact with them, right? Very special task that needs to be done. And it gets her to show these delegates, because these delegates are quite a number of them, and they very ambivalent about joining, right? And I guess the worlds are a bit negative to it. And because of that, the more they get to see, the easier it is for the delegates to go home and sell the idea of joining the agglomeration. Right. So instead of just giving up and saying, "Ah, it's useless," they persist in staying, and they get to see more. And now they see first contact, and they get to see all the benefits and advantages and how they deal with this. It's a wonderful story that I still have to write out in full, but it's very cool. It's a little bit of it, but very small. Yeah, yeah. The Church of the New Nobility comes into it. There is such a thing. Yeah. Thank you, Norma. So cool, so cool, so cool. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Camellias was an academic.
Hmm.
His world had joined the egg, but only recently. No new nobility there yet. Yella intuitively added, the new nobility are cautious and deliberate in their interactions. They ease their way in.
What a sentence. What a sentence. The new nobility are cautious and deliberate in their interactions. Those two aren't normally used together, right? When we are cautious, we are somewhat indeliberate typically, yes? And when we are deliberate, well, usually you don't think of somebody who's being very deliberate as necessarily cautious. They can be, of course. There's no reason why they couldn't go together. They just don't typically go together, and for no good reason, right? Of course, we can be cautious and deliberate at the same time, right? But she's saying they ease their way in. Yes, but deliberation, being cautious, doesn't normally imply deliberation. It can, and vice in reverse too, right? They ease their way in. That's exactly what she's doing with him.
Reflected her own statement, not exactly inappropriate, something she of course already knew and likely Camellias also, and thus not entirely necessary for the situation.
Right. Just to comment there on the capital R reading. It's not a typo. It's not, she reflected on her own statement. No,
No, she reflected her own statement.
exactly. She put it out. She was doing exactly what she said. So she reflected her own statement. Very sophisticated point there, yeah?
Yes. And likely Camellias also, and thus not entirely necessary for the situation. The unexpected surfacing to her meant it would be a template. Yes, that would be the way to proceed with Camellias.
Hmm.
A reminder to be cautious and deliberate, to ease her way in.
Right.
Camellias stood and said, Camellias get caught late one night with a tube of his spray, coding, writing. What is the word here?
Frack.
What it means?
Just an alternative to a swear word, like a
Okay,
nice way of saying it. Yeah. So frack the
writing,
nobility, like saying
whatever the
up yours nobility, frack the nobility. Yeah.
I'm just saying, okay,
Just
writing whatever
a
the nobility
non-swearing.
on a garden wall.
Yeah. Yeah. In some TV series they use frack, or let's see, what was the other one? Instead, just as a polite way of saying things. Yeah. So
Okay, I'm just
it's
going
a
to read
polite,
this again.
yeah, yeah. Great.
Camellias gets caught late one night with a tube of his spray coating writing, whatever the nobility, on a garden wall.
Yeah. I mean, what a
Biella
thing,
refrained from
to
responding.
say. What, yeah. Go ahead.
Biella refrained from responding, except with the laugh, most revealing. She took note of the words Camellias had chosen to use for his joke, so completely incongruous
Yeah.
and thus significant.
Now I edited this. He used the 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 worst term, right? Frack is like a polite way of saying it. It's like saying BS instead of, right? And
Yes.
it's an amelioration, uh, not an amelioration. It's another word for it, but anyway. But he'd use the worst term, which is quite significant, right? But we'll just have to imagine that. I changed it because of Biella, because of Bina, I mean.
Thank you. Thank
Pleasure,
you.
Bina. But I thought you could read frack. It's okay for you to read frack. It's totally incongruous.
I'm cautious of whenever I read
No,
something new.
no,
The
it's not a
context
swear
also,
word.
like what it
Yeah, but
is.
it's not a swear word in any place, right? It's incongruous.
There is
Not a problem.
something very interesting about swear words. It's not
Yeah,
about the word, the meaning.
yeah.
It's about the
The
tone.
intent, correct. And it's good that you don't want to read it. I love that. I truly admire and respect this in you. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. But it's necessary in the story, because
Yes.
it reveals Camellias's mindset, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Biella added to her earlier comment. Its appropriateness now evident. The new nobility can upset systems and social orders rather quickly just by their presence, without saying a word to anyone, but drew no reaction from Camellias. He's broken from the circle in a spiral now.
Yeah. Also, look at Biella's attunement to herself. She has an anomalous thought or an idea, perception come up in her, and she listens to it, right? It was a bit incongruous. A reminder to herself to be deliberate and cautious, to ease her way in, right?
Yeah.
Because she's now saying what she said, right? She knows this, and it's just a reminder. She does listen to herself, and she repeats it to say, in this, she says, we can cause and upset systems and social orders rather quickly, including internal systems, of course, internal social orders, just by their presence, without saying a word to anybody, just by being themselves. But this doesn't bring any reaction from Camellias. He's already started in that spiral. Yes. The sophistication of Biella is off the charts, right, Bina?
Yes.
Keep going, please.
Camellias studies it in his academic voice. When considering what is possible for anything or in any situation, we ought to be rational. The appropriate rationality for possibility is physics, as in logic, where the valid is merely what is not invalid. In physics, the universe always allowed, except that which is expressly denied by law. So, anything and everything which does not violate the laws of physics is possible. Yes, we are allowed. Some more inevitable than others.
Oh, I love this. I love this section. Again, the layered sophistication of it. Camellias is acknowledging that the impossible has become possible. Why? Because it doesn't violate the laws of physics, as far as we know, right? The impossible being the way the new nobility live. He's acknowledging that when it comes to cultures, because cultures don't really have anything to do with the laws of physics, anything is possible. And he never thought this before, even though it's obvious from a logical point of view that there can be radically different ways of being and different cultures and different individuals. But he never considered it to actually be something that's just beside an academic idea to actually exist. And yeah, he's come into contact with it. So he's now saying the thing that I've been preaching and teaching to the students, now I'm actually experiencing it. Right. And it's like, holy moly, wow. I was talking about something, and yeah, I've actually encountered it. Right. And this is incredible. But look at what Biella says. She doesn't say some more possible than others. She says some more inevitable. That one statement says, if you think about things that and then start to go where the new nobility is an inevitability, not simply an exception. It can only go there for those who have this desire, this way of being, and if they take things to the end, right? Keep going. It's inevitable. She says some more inevitable than others, right? Uh, the society that she's in is more inevitable than some others because it's founded on that deeper sobriety, deeper sensibility. Yes, 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 yes. Norma, look what Norma says. Norma is being very
Mhm.
helpful there, Abina. Yes, so we're on page 28, and Norma wants to continue on this point, right? Next time, right? Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So
This point about the laws of physics and his bubble that he was in, right? And assuming things to be normal and ever, right? In other words, his consideration of his previous preaching. That's what Norma asks. Can we keep this to begin the next one? Yes, Norma, we will do that. We will do that. We
yes,
will do that tomorrow.
it is
Tomorrow,
very
yes.
appropriate. Perfect
Perfect
timing.
timing. Absolutely. Just too wonderful, Norma. It's a very big deal. It's a very, very, very big deal, this. Very big deal. Very big deal what he says. And Biella's comment also. I just love that. Some more inevitable than others. Just the sophistication of it. We'll come back to it tomorrow. What a joy. What a
Yes.
joy. What an absolute joy. Oh, it was so nice listening to you. Bina, it's just a treat. It's just a treat. I really enjoy you reading the story. Yeah. It is important, Norma. You're right. It is massively important. See, Camellias agrees. He's looking at you with those. This is important eyes. Very similar to Bina's eyes.
I was thinking that that's something, yes.
Yeah, it's the expression that there's more. I see more.
Yes,
I understand more. Yes, there's more. Yeah. And I
yes.
can't share it all, but I can't share it all. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
It's a pleasure, Norma and Norma. It's Bina and Norma and Sol. What a joy. What a joy. What a joy. It's such a
Okay,
joy
Norma,
having
and
you here.
anyone who has been watching and will watch it later.
Yeah.
This story was for me. It was consuming. It was like you, yes, you want to
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
more about it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you don't want to preempt or and you start thinking, okay, yes, what will, because we start getting into speculation and assumptions and all these things. But this story actually inhibit you to just do any of it and just stay there and just completely get involved into this without preempting, without speculating, without just be receptive. That's it. Maybe I was looking for some other words, but this is what I can right now. It's the best. It
Receptive.
makes you receptive.
Yep, yep, yep. Receptive is huge. It's massively receptive. And it's very consuming, as you say. I mean, look, we've been going 2 hours and it feels like what, 10 minutes?
Yes, yes,
Yeah, yeah,
yes.
yeah. Yes, a lot of signposts pointing. Yes, Norma. Yes, beautiful, gorgeous Norma. Oh, what a hot comment. What a beautiful, deep, honest, self-reflective comment. Beautiful, Norma. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right,
Okay,
see you all
everyone.
tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. See you
Yes.
tomorrow. Bye for now.
Bye-bye, bye-bye. End meeting for all.